Okay, and we'll go right into it. All right, Professor Giovanni. So grateful to have you here today. And we're just going to talk about the Phillis Wheatley Poetry Festival, 73 and 2003, 50 years apart, but absolutely connected. So if you could just talk to us a little bit about what the experience was like being here in Jackson for the inaugural Phillis Wheatley Poetry Festival. What was the spirit of that event? What was it like being here with women like Margaret Walker and Sonia Sanchez, Audre Lorde, the other sister writers who were here? How did that affect you? Just take us back to 73.
Oh, I don't know if I can take you back because at my age, I've forgotten a lot. But of course, anytime you think about Jackson, I think about Margaret. I was very, very lucky, Margaret Walker, Dr. Walker. I was very, very lucky to be able to not only be a friend of Dr. Walker's, but, Margaret lived right across the street, directly across the street from Medgar Evers. And so every time that you're there, I really like what Murley has done with making a museum of Mr. Evers' place. And I wish the kids would do a little better with Margaret's house, tell you the truth, but that would be another discussion. And I've been very fortunate to write a book with Margaret because we did a conversation. And Jackson is well, Mississippi is important. And I think it's easy to forget because we tend to think of some of the ugly things that happened in Mississippi, starting, of course, with Emmett Till or having Emmett Till being a part of it. But Mississippi is an important state and has brought really great people out of Mississippi. You look at the number of great people. My next door neighbor, Morgan Freeman, is a Mississippian, and he does an ad for a hotel, and it's a wonderful ad. He said, I'm a fan of Mississippi and New York City, and I just think it's so. I think it's so great because I think Mississippi needs to be thought of as the great city, as the great state that it is. And I am hoping to get down, but we are. I don't mean to rattle on, but the Phillis Wheatley Conference is a festival. Like, it's not a conference; it's a festival. It's so important because Miss Wheatley, like a lot of us at the beginning of our career, Miss Wheatley was accused of not doing her own work. That how could a Black woman write poetry that's beautiful and that's important? And they actually, had her sit down. They being the so-called white intellectuals, now how did you get to this line and how did you get to that line? And of course, Miss Wheatley held her own and rightfully so. And I'm so pleased that this festival has continued. 50 years is a long time. And I'm really just pleased that we're continuing this. And by the way, and then I'll let you talk, but the last time I was in Jackson, you had the Toni Morrison bench. And I have a photograph of myself that I just love so much, of me sitting on the bench, on the Toni Morrison bench there at Jackson State. And I just think that, the things that Jackson has done. I'm sorry about the water, and I hope that we've gotten that straightened out. But I think the things that we've done to go forward, I think this is important. And I think the people of Jackson, Mississippi, need to be proud of themselves, of their state, and of the people that they have created. I think that you should not be down on yourself because you're a Mississippian, because it's a wonderful, the creativity coming out is great. And I said that badly, but it's nonetheless true. The creativity coming from Mississippi is great. And I didn't mention, I should have, Alice Walker, speaking of Walkers. And Alice lived, right around the corner from Margaret. And so that was just great, to be right there with all of this history. And you think, my goodness, you talk about feeling great. And being in Jackson State recently, I think it's been 2 or 3 years. I've had some health issues, as you probably are aware of. But being in Jackson State was just wonderful because you're just surrounded by a lot of history and a lot of spirit of people who say, no, we ain't gonna let nobody, the old spiritual, ain't gonna let nobody turn me around.
That was beautifully said. I mean, the people of Jackson should be proud, and being in Jackson State was Beautiful. And I think about that as I walk through this campus. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. That's the perfect sentiment. Because we have these reminders of the repression and the oppression, but there we have the evidence and the fruit of resistance right here on this campus. I appreciate that. As a Jacksonian myself, I'm very proud to be from this place. So with this 50th celebration, we set out to accomplish a few things. We wanted to, one, obviously pay homage to Wheatley and the foundation that she really is for Black women's literary legacy. Two, we wanted to lift and honor Margaret Walker's courage and the impact, right, of not only her work, but her imagining this event in 73. I mean, we thought it was a huge undertaking in 2023. I can't imagine, right, what she was contending with in 73. Thirdly, we wanted to celebrate Black women writing and the sister circles that make that possible. And fourthly, we wanted to showcase the lineage of Wheatley and Walker and you and so many others with this new vanguard of women, Black women writing. So we've got Jesmyn Ward and Imani Perry and Angie Thomas and Nick Stone and Nicole Hannah-Jones. We really wanted to say, Wheatley, Walker, look what you have grown. Giovanni, look what you have grown. Look what you all have done. And so can you share a little bit about how you feel, why you feel maybe this 50th is important, why it's valuable for us to do this at this moment in time?
Well, I think it's important for all of the, now I'm going to say youngsters because I recently turned 80, for all of the youngsters to realize for lack of a better metaphor, the grass that we've cut so that they can go through it. And I really like what the young people are doing. And I don't know where it's going to go, but hip hop has, people don't, some people like it, some people don't. I'm not going to argue about hip hop. But hip hop is, of course, a vernacular. And I'm waiting for now for the Black intellectuals particularly to deal with that. As, for example, Dante wrote in the vernacular, but nobody considers Dante a vernacular. It's like, oh no, he's just a genius. But hip hop is a vernacular. And as the intellectuals begin to take over and explain hip hop, we're going to go to the next vernacular. And I'm excited about that because the kids are coming up and they're doing it, they're writing. And I must mention one of my very favorite writers, and quite a brilliant writer, is a young Haitian, well, she's Haitian American, Edwidge Dadican. And Edwidge is just a whole nother level of novel. And Toni Morrison, who was a dear friend of mine and a dear friend of Edwidge, both of us, Toni and I, totally agreed. Oh, Edwidge is the next novelist who's coming up. And I know that there are other people that say, oh no, she hasn't had a bestseller, or whatever they're saying. But she's quite brilliant and quite empathetic. And I think that what Edwidge brings to the novel right now is going to help bring something else up. I don't know what. I really don't. I wish I did. I called her the other day because of this situation in Israel with, Hamas. And I was really concerned because she lives in New York, and there was some, like all old ladies, Edwidge actually is 20 years younger than I am. And I was 20 years younger than James Baldwin. And so, you kind of feel, I don't want her to think, and I say that, I don't want her to think that I'm, her mom, but, you get worried about the people that you love, and you begin to watch what they are doing and how they're doing it. And there's another young lady, and it seems for reasons I don't understand, that I know more about the novelists right now than I do the poets. But there's another young lady, Renee Watson, and you may know Renee, and she writes YA, she writes young adult, and again, just quite brilliant. She happens to be right now, and I'm glad, in Portland with her mother, or her family. Her mother's passed, but with her family, and I'm glad that she is, because I would worry about her. She lives in New York also, and there's been a lot going on. I would worry, but you see the youngsters coming up, and it's good to see the novelists also. The poets have always been there. I talked to Sonia Sanchez, not regularly, but pretty much, because her health well, we laugh about it because the first thing when you talk to old ladies, the first thing they talk about is, how they're feeling. How are you feeling? Well, my bowels moved today. So, and it's one of those, and I know I shouldn't say something like that. You probably cut it out, but it's really funny. So I check on her and she checks on me. And we are seeing the group grow. And I think I've said it again rather awkwardly, but it's nice to see the youngsters coming up. And for me, it's really nice to see the novelists coming up, because the novelists are telling us, poets we tell a lot. I think we help people see things, but the novelists tell the story. Mm-hmm. And I think that if we said, if somebody asked, well, what's the Black Library? Well, the Black Library was the people in the forest going out into the woods after a day's work, singing spirituals. They were putting the story together. The writers wrote it, whether it was Richard Wright, and I'm not fighting about another Mississippian because some people like him, some people don't, but Richard Wright, what's his name, Ellison. You have them telling a story, but the poets took that story, that story they were telling, and we made a song out of it. And making that song, we were able to teach our people that we are a great people. Did I say that badly?
No, it's beautiful.
I think it's so wonderful. So I was recently at a library association, and we were talking about what are the first great libraries. The first library was the Black people singing in the forest. That was the first library in America. Now, and I'm not picking on white people, but now books came along and white people had money, they could build buildings, but we couldn't build buildings. We could only remember what we wanted our children to know through song. And that became our library. And our libraries continue. That's why people continue to burn books. But if you burn books, it doesn't matter, because you cannot burn a song. The song will live. And that's what we've shown.
Ooh, wow. Wow. I mean, this is all singing to me as a writer. I'm jotting down notes to share with my students about how they are contributing to this library, as you call it. I think it's beautiful. And this really segues into my next inquiry, because you say we are seeing the group grow. And I think that's a lovely sort of metaphor on gardening, which Margaret Walker was a great gardener. And we hear Alice Walker using gardening as a metaphor and paying homage to her mother and our mothers. And so, there are so many aspiring writers at this year's festival. We're all here, and we're here for camaraderie and inspiration and affirmation and love and so much more. We want to harness the spirit that has kept this legacy alive for so many years. And your work has been a beacon for myself and so many others. So can you talk to us and maybe share with us the opportunity that exists in our writing to do something that our people need and deserve? Maybe speak into us what you see our role and our obligation to the craft being.
Well, I'm not a craft person, and there are a lot of craft people out there. So I'm sure that they'd be delighted to talk to you. I just think about the gathering. I'm going to use bad language again, but one of the things, if you get a bunch of particularly Black women, and that's going to be Phillis Wheatley on up or down, whichever way you look at it, the one thing we're going to talk about is food. And so we all cook. And by the way, Margaret Walker was as you know, was an excellent cook. Margaret could cook. And as much as we loved her, and we all did, Gwendolyn Brooks couldn't cook. So when Gwen would invite you to her home and say things like, oh, I'll cook, I'll make dinner for you, everybody would go like, oh no, not Gwen cook, because she couldn't cook. But for Margaret, it was worth coming down to Mississippi for, because Margaret could cook. And Margaret and I cooked together. And that was just always a pleasure. It was always a pleasure to come down. She was great. And I think that that's one thing we do. And when I think about space, when I think about the galaxy, I'm always saying that the group that we've got to get into the galaxy are Black women. And people say, why? And I say, because we're the only people that get along with everybody. And as we go up to Mars, there's a documentary on me called Going to Mars, the Nikki Giovanni project. But as we go to Mars, and as we meet Martians, the first thing Black women are going to say is, "Are you hungry, baby? Have you eaten?" Because that's what we do. And a poem does the same thing, or a song does the same thing. If you get a bunch of Black women together, you're going to hear the humming because they hum. And somebody says, my grandmother used to do that song, because I'm back to my library. We know each other's songs. We know what our grandmothers and our great grandmothers taught us. I think it's fabulous. So you're saying, well, what do we teach? I don't know what we teach, because I don't know it's our job to teach. Mm-hmm. I think it's our job to be loving and to be patient and to listen. And I think that that's what people like me try to do. I'm not trying to teach anybody anything. I'm just trying to be me and to let them know that for whatever it means, I got your back. If you're tired, I got your back. Come and sit down. Come and I'm a good cook. Come and let me fry some chicken. You'll feel better. And that's all we can do. I'm not going to try. And you're a professor, Ebony, so I'm not taking away your job, because you're helping them to learn. This is the way you structure. This is what you look. And that's all very good. But I am an old woman, first of all, and a professional writer. So my job, I think, is to just be there. Mm. I do what I do, but you also know that if you call on me, I mean, right now, and unfortunately, I couldn't come to be with you in Jackson, because I would love to have been there. But I'm at the point, I just can't. There are just things I can't do. There's just a limit. And I'm 80 years old, so I'm supposed to have some sense. I can't keep running around. But that's my job, is to let you know I'm here for you as best I can be. Mm-hmm. That's all I can do. And I would also, of course, encourage you to cook. And I really don't understand people who can't cook. So I think, no, you got to learn to cook. And I'm not a chef, I'm a cook. And the difference is chefs measure things, 1/4 quarter, there's whatever. But cooks, I'm a Southern cook. They just, like my grandmother, mm-hmm. You open the pantry and whatever is in there, that's what you start to put together and you make it. I think that's wonderful. But again, I think that's what a poem is. You open your heart and see what's in there and put that down.
Mm. Oh, you are pouring into me. I cannot wait to share this with so many. I'm a cook too, and you wouldn't believe it, but I literally just had this conversation with my girlfriends this morning about cooking and not understanding people that didn't know the different pieces of the chicken. How can you not tell it apart? So, this is singing to me. And you have really harnessed my approach to teaching. It is to be patient and to be loving and to listen. That's really, especially, that's the way I consider my work with my students, especially here at Jackson State. I was at Tougaloo before, and trying to model what was done for me, that people loved me and they were patient and they listened. And that is what I learned to do and how I learned. So thank you for affirming.
And if I may, just for a minute, give a shout out to Tougaloo.
Yes, please.
Because it's one of my favorite, and I know you're a Spelman woman. I'm a Fiskite, but Tougaloo is also one of the best liberal arts colleges. And I know I'm talking to Jackson State, but I just need to give a shout out to one of the best small schools in America.
I concur. Tougaloo is in the room as well. I taught there for 7 years, and so they have a special place in my heart. You're right. You're absolutely right. One of the best places on earth, and that's our sister school unofficially. We love them. Thank you for doing that. Thank you. I can't wait to share that with my colleagues. You mentioned going to Mars, and I'm all bound up in this because I teach about Afrofuturism and Black women's role in the Black futures. And I just want to take a point of privilege and share with you some of the work that I've had the privilege of doing with men who are incarcerated at Parchment Penitentiary. They've just finished your book with me, Quilting the Black IP. And they were very taken by the poem, We're Going to Mars. I mean, absolutely taken by it. And so I just wanted to share that with you so that you know that you talk about limitations, physical limitations, but you're reaching out to us. You are still loving us. You are still listening to us. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
The last question, and I could just listen to you pour into me selfishly for forever. So thank you. But we're celebrating the legacy of Wheatley primarily, and then Walker, and so many others, yourself included, this week. But I want to know from you what you hope your legacy will be, and how you've been intentional about crafting that inheritance.
Yeah. And again, now I'm no good actually at all to you. I don't think about it because it'll make me crazy, and I've seen it make other people crazy. I don't. I just every day I wake up, I'm happy, and I get to talk to youngsters like you, and I get to, when everything works, I get to go places. I'm going out to St. Louis, and I'm thinking about a month, and so I'm excited about that. Actually, by the way, since Mark Twain, there has been nobody who has done the Mississippi.
Yeah.
And I really want to come to Louisiana, and I want to come up the Mississippi River all the way up to wherever it ends now, Wisconsin or Minnesota, whichever one. And if I do, I would have an opportunity to come and visit with you guys for a while. But I don't want to think about, and I don't what I'm leaving behind, because I just want to keep going forward. And that's really, it's not a good answer, but I'm not egomaniacal. So I don't have I don't have that problem of, well, what are they going to think about me? Because I don't care what they think about me. And and I would advise all the young writers out there not to care what they think about you, because all of the really good writers that I'm aware of, nobody knew that they were really good, for 100 years. You've been dead. So you may as well continue to live and enjoy it, and be pleased with your work, to know that you have done the best that you can do, because that's all you can do. And at any given point, somebody has said, well, I've been asked this, and we all do a lot, well, what would you tell your, 30-year-old self? Well, I don't know, but I know that whatever I did at 30 was the best I can do, like whatever I'm doing at 80. And I can't let what I did at 30 affect me, because there's going to be contradictions. If you never make a contradiction, you haven't grown. The other word for that would be you're stupid. You have to have contradictions, because as you learn things, you realize, oh, I could have done better, or I could have done it differently. And that's all you can do. So I appreciate anybody, that's reading my work, and I'm glad. And all anybody will ever be able to say that I know is that, well, I know she did her best, and that's it. I really have done my best. I am doing my best.
That's a legacy in itself. Whether you're thinking about it or not, you are doing your best. You have given us the best and your best, and we are eternally grateful. Professor Giovanni, thank you. Thank you for giving me what I needed for this particular day, but giving us all the gift of your words and your heart, your patience and your love. Thank you.
Thank you.
Robbie.